I've always felt quite a kinship with animals. I see them as very spiritual beings who have much to teach us. Animals seem to naturally have a sense of mindfulness and a purity of living, an ability to connect and support one another, and sometimes even us humans, without words, but in shared living. At times, I've envied their wildly intelligent but simple minds. There is a Jewish obligation to show compassion to animals, Tsa'ar Ba'alei Chaim. There are many ways to protect and be guardians of the animal kingdom, and we have texts throughout our tradition on our obligation to care for them. In Proverbs, we learn that a righteous individual is one who knows the soul of an animal. The Babylonian Talmud shares that the rabbis taught man was created on the eve of the Sabbath, and for what reason? So that in case his heart grew proud, one might say to him, even the gnat was in creation before you were there. In this week's Torah portion, Amor, we encounter a succinct yet profound law. The text shares, when an ox or sheep or a goat is born, it shall stay 7 days with its mother, and from the 8th day on it shall be acceptable as an offering by fire to Adonai. However, no animal from the herd or from the flock shall be slaughtered on the same day with its young. That's Leviticus 22, verse 27 and 28. On the surface, this appears to be a straightforward regulation about not killing a mother animal and her offspring together. However, the wisdom embedded in this mitzvah extends far beyond its literal meaning, speaking to our role as divinely created beings tasked with compassion and stewardship over God's creatures. I think part of the reason I find this specific text so compelling is that it speaks to the complexity of the ethical decisions we have to make in our day. In their day, they believed sacrifice was necessary. But even in that necessity that involved the slaughtering of animals, they tried to be as humane as possible. Much of our modern medicine, clothing, food, housing, land development has been built on the sacrifice of animals and their habitats. It would be nearly impossible to exist in this world without contributing to the hardship of the animal kingdom. Yet, this encourages us that we must try however we can. I believe this is the message of this value. Even in a time of necessary sacrificing of animals, don't lose sight of your compassion or obligation to them. Ancient and modern rabbis have offered illuminating perspective on this law's significance. Rabbi Samson Raphael Hirsch taught that it aims to awaken feelings of compassion and tenderness in the heart of man. To end the life of a mother and her child on the same day would be an act of inconsiderate cruelty. The text, the Sefer HaChinuch, explains that observing this mitzvah accustoms a person to traits of compassion and drives away cruelty. Even in the necessity of slaughter, we must maintain reverence for life, this law argues. From a liberal Jewish viewpoint, this Torah verse takes on even broader meaning. It calls us to consider how we treat all living beings with which we share this earth, to extend compassion not just to domesticated or wild animals, but to all creatures great and small. The ethical treatment of animals is thus a spiritual mandate, and we would be wise to consider these teachings. The 12th century Jewish philosopher Maimonides expresses this expansive moral obligation, writing, "It is prohibited to cause pain to animals because there is no difference between torturing animals and human beings, because the principle against causing pain applies equally to both." And Rabbi David Wolpe adds, "God's invisible instruction courses through the world. Be compassionate to all living creatures. Every wanton cruelty diminishes us and deadens some part of our souls." This past week, Jews in Israel and around the world solemnly commemorated Yom HaZikaron, Israel Memorial Day. It is a sacred time to grieve for all those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice. And in the ongoing pursuit of peace and security, they have lost their lives. Yet after the morning of Yom HaZikaron, the somber tone pivoted to one of muted, significantly muted, but some joy of the celebration of Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, with the celebration of the enduring promise of hope, resilience, renewal, and peace for all people, security for all people. This whiplash between grief and celebration is emblematic of the Jewish people's historical journey, persevering through unfathomable darkness to emerge into light and life. On both sides of this intractable Israeli-Palestinian conflict, far too many mothers and fathers have faced the unnatural anguish of bearing their children, young lives cut short by seemingly endless cycles of violence, hatred breeding more hatred, and our hearts break for those Israeli and Palestinian parents who have experienced such profound, searing loss and devastation. Families broken by conflict and futures robbed. This diminishes all humanity. The costs of this generational trauma are incalculable. Our ancient tradition, as we learn about from this week's Torah portion, which required sacrifices, wouldn't allow for the slaughter of an animal with its young on the same day. The circle of pain and tragedy is never ending when I think of how many Israeli and Palestinian parents have witnessed the death of their children, and children witnessed the death of their parents in the last 7 months. Only today, we have tragically learned that the second of our 2 adopted hostages, 28-year-old Amit Esther Buskila, has been confirmed to have been killed on October 7th. We mourn for her and for her family. Our commentary on this week's parashah teach that cruelty to animals damages more than the animal itself, but also the spiritual makeup of those who are witness to it. How much the more so does the circle of pain caused to other humans influence the spiritual ethos of our world? I was reminded of this poem by Israeli poet Yehuda Amichai. It's titled "The Diameter of the Bomb." The diameter of the bomb was 30 centimeters, and the diameter of its effective range about 7 meters, with 4 dead and 11 wounded. And around those, in a larger circle of pain and time, 2 hospitals are scattered and 1 graveyard. But the young woman, who was buried in the city she came from, at a distance of more than 100 kilometers, enlarges the circle considerably. And the solitary man, mourning her death at the distant shores of a country far across the sea, includes the entire world in the circle. And I won't even mention the crying of orphans that reaches up to the throne of God and beyond, making a circle with no end and no God, he writes. And so the Torah implores us not to extinguish generations callously, but to foster life wherever we can, to treat living beings, whether human or animal, with reverence and compassion. For in showing cruelty to the most defenseless creatures, we inflict spiritual damage upon ourselves. But in choosing compassion, nurturing life, and being responsible stewards of God's world, we can live up to our highest ideals and potentials. As we go forward, may we embrace this Torah's call to tenderness. May our actions reflect the expansive empathy that allows all living beings to thrive, and may we hold tightly to the hope and dream of renewal and healing in a world too often darkened by violence, hatred, and indifference. With open hearts, patience, and shared commitment to compassion, the light must surely grow brighter. Shabbat Shalom. It is my great honor to invite to the Bima Rabbi Alex, who will be leading the admission to Judaism for Alice. It's a very, very exciting time, and we are all very lucky to get to be witness to such a simcha.
Thank you, Rabbi Elana. I hope you're not disappearing completely for the rest of the service. And thank you to all those who took part in the service this evening. It's a lovely feeling, I think, to be able to divest oneself sometimes of the responsibility and bask in your abilities. And picking up the theme of Rabbi Elana's moving sermon, I want to pay tribute to you, Alice, who this evening celebrate your admission service. This isn't something that you have come to in the last 5 minutes. This is a journey that has taken 20 years, perhaps even more, stepping across the threshold into a place where you already belong, in fact, and your presence as a full member of our community helps to make our world a brighter world, in the knowledge that our heritage, our precious heritage, is passed down, is embraced by you as a whole family. So I'd like to invite you and John and Celia to come and join me on the Bima. We're going to turn to page 593. And please stand as we open the ark. This way. Yeah, Alice?
Oh, bring it. Oh, bring it. Okay.
Just face me.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Great. As for the strangers who join themselves to the Eternal One, who choose to serve the God of Israel in love, all who keep the Sabbath and do not profane it, and hold fast to my covenant, I will bring them to my holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. For my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. So we welcome you, Alice, in the words of the psalmist, and say, Barucha haba'a b'shem Adonai, be'erachnuchem mi beit Adonai. Blessed are you who come in the name of the Eternal One. May you be blessed in the house of the Eternal One. I'm going to ask you now these questions. Do you sincerely affirm the Jewish faith?
I do.
Do you of your own free will choose to enter the eternal covenant between the God of Israel and the house of Israel?
I do.
Do you pledge your loyalty to the Jewish faith and the Jewish people in all circumstances?
I do.
Do you promise to the best of your ability to practice Judaism in your personal life, to participate actively in the life of the Jewish community?
I do.
And I know that you and John continue to raise Celia in the Jewish faith.
We do.
Now you've got a choice of 3 scrolls. You've got the big, middle, or baby. Oh, I'll do the baby. The baby, that's our little check scroll. So you're going to come over here with me.
I solemnly declare before God that I will strive to carry out faithfully the duties and responsibilities which have now been placed upon me as a Jew. I pray for strength so to honor my commitment that I may bring credit to the Jewish people blessing to humanity and glory to God's name. To all those present who represent the house of Israel, I say, Amech Ami ve'elochech Elohi. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal One is our God, the Eternal God is one. Ve'ehavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavka avechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha. You shall love the Eternal One, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might.
We welcome you into our community and say to you, Achotenu at, you are our sister. Lekach tov natati lachem, Torati al ta'azovu, Eitz chayim hi lemachazikim ba, V'tomcheha me'usha, Racheha dachei noam, V'chol netivoteha, Shalom. Behold, a good doctrine has been given to you. Do not forsake it. It is a tree of life to those who hold it fast, and all who cling to it find happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Now, the blessing in which we bestow upon you your chosen Hebrew name, which is Aliza, which seems so appropriate for you, this joyfulness and the joy in which you embrace your Judaism and have done throughout these last 20 years, your marriage to John, raising Celia. So this is an affirmation, really, of your Jewish identity. Mi sheberach avotenu Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov, v'imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, v'Leah, hu yivarech et achotenu zo, asher ba'a lachasot tachat kenafav, v'yikareh Shema b'Yisrael Aliza, ben bat Avraham v'Sarah. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless you, our sister, who have come to take refuge under the wings of the Eternal One. And let your name in Israel be Aliza, daughter of Abraham and Sarah. Barechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'choneka, Sa Adonai panav elecha, Yasem lecha shalom. May God bless you and keep you. May God's face shine upon you and be kind to you. May God reach out to you with tenderness, give you peace.
Amen.